Okay, hello everyone, welcome to tonight's episode. The title has come, a sincerity that taught the wind how to move. And how does our species point the sails of its evolution beyond thought? Human intelligence is very incredible because it was intelligent before it was human, but it was intelligent unconsciously. We wonder about how existence is happening. That's usually where it all starts. Okay, this is a proper song. The other one was had too much melody. Okay, this is how I would begin it. Human beings, we're intelligent. We are being first before we do anything. You can literally say that when the child is in the womb, it is just being. That is the purpose of its position. When the child leaves the womb, then it gets access to doing things. First the body is connected with nature, then the body is separate from nature, and it really feels like there is a wind at work. You see, that's the thing about the wind, that it moves without being seen. I feel I can start from here by saying that purpose was sought for. We were trying to find the meaning as a sense of doer. That means, think of it that life was first an unconscious state of being. There were planets around, there was no creature, nothing. In that unconsciousness of the world moving, there eventually emerged a point of consciousness, and before consciousness there was no history. Before we were an individual, there was no story for the creature, entity, or being to find itself in. So when we look at our existential intelligence, it goes back to the unconscious. But when we look at our experiential intelligence, that has to do with the domain of consciousness, which instantly evokes free will. That means consciousness is a vehicle. There is something in life that whatever the person does, their mind is watching their body. And what watches the mind is really what the mystics were after. I would say from an unconscious state of existence, that is the source of the body. When I look at my elemental existence, it didn't make sense from the beginning. And we have this view that brains emerged and then consciousness arose or is found because of it. But I would say that it's as if like there was something there before. The brain just became an antenna. It's as if the moment the person had a phone, they could make phone calls, they could receive phone calls. But before having that instrument, it was just a direct journey. That means back in the day, people would have to travel to towns to just be able to see new faces and talk to new village people, do you know? But now that has become instant. Do you know the ability of speech and communication? Right now, I'm live streaming in Toronto, Canada, and I have no idea where in the world my voice echoes, but now it's like that ability is there. So back in the day, it was less instant, whatever the being wanted to do. If there is a known body that leads to a mind that knows itself in unknown ways, it's as if like two sides of a coin that's spinning in the air. You know, I feel we are existentially known, experientially unknown. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is that there was no awareness to the information, but there was information. And when a person wonders about their life, to be honest, we're not in the body all the time. Like in deep sleep, we're not there. When the child doesn't have a personality, it's not there, you know? This sincerity that I speak of, sincerity is not something really someone can talk about. It's a quality of being. Moments in my life where I felt sincerity opened the curtains of the divine, or moments in life where I felt too simple for the world, or the world felt too simple for me. It was one of those cases. There was at some component of the psyche, there was peace, you know? This is the cool thing about human beings, that we think that there should be a category in bookstores called self-improvement. There should literally be a category called world improvement. That means it's like, what do you do after the self is improved? You know, there is some views, I was speaking to a family member of mine, and I got reminded of a very important point. You see, for some time now, I've been focused on trying to make people like Carl Jung proud. in a way of exploring the unconscious of the species, the collective unconscious. For me, the coolest thing on this planet is these two words, collective unconscious. It is what everybody doesn't know yet. Do you know? And I can tell you that my attention has moved in a way where the focus has been on strategy, right? I can tell you that it's been some time where every moment I'm existent, I wonder about what's the strategy of experience going to be like. How is the experiential film going to roll out? You know, literally as the person wakes up and experiences the day. You see, this is one thing I noticed. I can say I got a very spiritual, metaphysical teaching from the scientific method. You see, the scientific method, in some sense, experiments with what is really there. Do you know? And so in some sense, I can tell you, I wondered that if I'm saying I have a mind, if I have dared be a human being and declare that I have a mind, I have to have evidence of that mind, right? And everything we see, from the behavior of the human being to everything, is evidence of the effect of our intelligence. Right? It's cause, whether it's instantaneous, whether it's spontaneous, whether before the person opens their eyes, their psyche already has expected the outer realms. You know, there is something there that what my family members shared was that if this world is a theme park, imagine one person arguing with people on the theme park, you know, let's say discussing with people the designs of the theme park, right? But the person is not in the theme park actually enjoying the rides. It's this challenge of, honestly, I would say that each person deep down subconsciously, it's not like who am I living for, or who is this even living? It's as if like, why is all of this here? I feel subconsciously everyone has noticed this. Maybe it's not in their conscious personality or something, you know, maybe they're not conscious of what they've noticed. Let's say you're a young child and you see two people fight, you know, or let's say you're a young child and behind a car window in the outside street, you see, for example, like a bunch of people street fight, right? Now there is no sound, there is nothing you can hear from the outside, but just from that glass window, the person is seeing something take place. Now the child, let's say, is so young, it can't process. That means like the child is so young, imagine that like when violence happens, the child can't even understand that that's violence, you know? What this means is what we don't know, we can't interpret as ourselves. And there is a sincerity which I would say comes from selflessness. That means pretty much in this world, every person's actions, they are either adding to the image of their self, or they're taking, or it's reducing it. Now in Taoism, they had this view, which I think more than ever serves the Western cultures, you know, is that if the self is not efficient, that means when the person is not experiencing an efficient moment, then the option is to increase the speed or put the brakes or press the brakes. I feel that if human beings treat their identities as subtle vehicles where their attention is piloting through, we either throw more rocks in the pond or we let the waters settle. Now, letting the waters settle is very key, and how sincerity comes into that. Think of it this way, that all human beings are multidimensional antennas, but they don't know this yet. Now, let's think of it this way, that someone's like, okay, maybe someone's torqued around with this, an antenna is giving some commentary, right? How I would recommend that the greater intelligence of the species be activated is that it starts from an individual search of your own life force. That means, think of it this way, that every person's life, just life in general, it's like riding two horses. One horse is your personal life. You gotta find this horse, gently put your hand on this horse and accept it. And then once it's like first you accept your life, then your life accepts you. That's the confidence of the inner realms, right? Then you accept the outer realms, and the outer realms beginning to accept you. But when I say accept the outer realms, not that there's something to accept. Of course, every person is projecting. Literally, it's like neurons are like giggling by tricking us into feeling we see things real from a materialistic perspective. Do you know? This is pretty much the idea. The human being is born. The human being doesn't actually looks in the mirror, notices its body, but doesn't look in the mirror or can't find a mirror for its mind. So the human being knows what it looks like, but doesn't know how it functions, because that's really the mind, right? The mind is where our functioning ability arises. So you know, there was this saying, they said, no money, no honey. You know, it's like it's like no mind, no sensory perception to even be received as the taste of honey, you know. Everyone can hold a sword. Literally, even think of it in medieval times, people had to train for times of war and whatnot, and so anybody could hold a sword, but what you did with it was the important thing, right? So there is the holding part, which is the courage, the fearlessness, and then there's the utility, the mastery that comes from some sort of endless endurance to pull the strings of the mysteries of your own eyes, you know? And when I say pull the strings, that means like to pull one string and to see where it leads. I feel there is a confrontation usually in a lot of modern day narratives. We find that the character meets an opponent. The character stands its ground and the opponent stands its ground, and the main character defeats the opponent but doesn't destroy the opponent. You know, acts gracious. Then the opponent becomes the main character's friend. Then like a bunch of episodes later, like, you know, the character, all the people that he's confronted throughout his life journey have become his allies. You know, all the confrontations develop the characters that build values to life stories. That means sometimes for me it's kind of unique, but it's like friendship is like a bunch of rooms to me. And when I say that, what I mean by that is that that means every person has their own mind's cadence, their own mind's presence, right? We master, we find the horse of the self, and we learn to ride it, you know? And once a person truly cares, like a horse rider that cares for the horse doesn't tire the horse, you know? So the inner realms, there is a sort of, I don't want to say certainty, but I want to say peacefulness balance is kind of like peace. That means I don't know how someone can feel like things are balanced if they're constantly being shaken, you know. To master the horse of the world, that is very, first of all, I'm like mid-journey, but I'll tell you, like, the horse has become cruel. The horse doesn't let anybody to sit on it. We have built a civilization 1.0 I call it, where it's easier to identify with a suffering creature. It's easier to be weak than strong. Can you imagine a civilization where it was easier to be strong than weak? You know, and it doesn't mean weakness is bad. It doesn't mean a person should be vulnerable or lock down their emotions with giant metal doors coming from the top of the doorway. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying that there is a story at the end of the day that we look through like a mirror. And for those who are interested in accessing the multidimensional antenna, it's actually very close. Think of it this way: it's a balance of emotion. It's a balance of how the body is, how the objective component to the moment is, how the subjective component to the moment is, and how also the emotion is to the moment. You know. Wonder about the simpler worldview you had of your inner child. There is something that Carl Jung spoke about, even Vedic thought spoke about, that when it comes to virtue, there is two types of virtue. This is more in Vedic thought, and I'll get to Jung's view, but there's very similar parallels. Like in Vedic thought, there is the innocence of the child. There's virtue. That means when you don't know anything, you're innocent. It doesn't matter. You could be like a professional, an expert in one field and on one branch of the tree of knowledge. Then when it comes to other branches, it's like you can totally be new to it, you know? Then there's the virtue of not the innocent. It's as if Carl Jung spoke about it as if the inner self gets forgotten, the person gets scarred and jaded by the intensity of life, but then the mastery of the psychology at that moment is to actually restore the inner child, right? So it's as if children, when they're young, they want to fit into the world. Because they want to fit into the world, they don't care to look at who they are. Because they don't care who they look at, because they don't care to look at themselves, the world tells them how to look at themselves, right? And an example of this is like any parent could go to their, literally their child's room and see the posters and the idols that child, their attention is on, you know? You see, we're not just creatures that, want stuff from the world. I feel we also want our own self-expressionism in our own light, but we also want the world's self-expressionism. That means there's no point of being, it's like one human being's success is nobody's success. If the species is unsuccessful, it's as if what success we're just about going into bunkers. It's as if we either fix the holes in the ship, right? Or we just go and stand on the top of the ship and we'll be like, yeah, this is good, Simplicity and embrace of the inner child that was banished, that was exiled. That means after some point, Is it better? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Anyways, guys, I don't know what to do about the chat section comment. Like, I feel the volume should be okay. I could turn off the music. If people feel it's better to turn off the music, they can message it in the chat section. Really, what it is that there's no such thing as knowing in a changing world. We just know what's happening, and we figure that out in comparison to other moments. You know, we're like clay that is sculpting itself from the inside. How phenomenal is that idea? You know, in as if a clay that is sculpting, that its instructions are coming from within it than outside of it. You know, that's honestly what's really kept me going with these talks. There's something exciting that what comes from within changes your eyes. But what comes from without gets changed in your eyes, you know. There is something more mysterious. There's nothing normal about 8 billion creatures on a sphere in the middle of nowhere. Nothing. There is nothing in this universe, when you look at it from the macrocosmic position, that tells you creatures with 5 fingers and an ability to speak and simulate a world over a world are going to occur. Like, the mystery of this world is too much. You know? So this is why it's like that simplicity of the inner child is required, or life will become burdensome, because that sincerity of the inner child is how the world was unknown. That's the whole point of the inner child. The world was unknown, so there was way more instantaneous trust in how to be something. It was as if it was more of an energetic behavior, was energetic based rather than linguistic based. You know, directly experiential, energetic based, then it becomes modified, as if our names become as real as our bodies when it comes to communicating, you know? You know, I wonder about who I was before I was born, and there's no image. And I wonder about who I will be after, and I'm like, what if it's like birth? What if there's no image, right? So it makes me feel now like a burning candle. The human life must be utilized to figure out its glow. Do you know? That means our minds are light in the realm. We don't realize it, but legit, like the light of intelligence, like a superior pattern of movement in this space. You know? Like, there's a reason there's YouTube videos where like turtles or dolphins with like plastic stuck in their face like come up to boats and human beings help them. You know what I mean? Like, there is a recognition of I feel it's our brains. I feel brains, like, imagine a world where all brains of all creatures were aware of each other. Nothing else. Like, all the bodies different and everything else, but just the brain. You know, that means imagine a room with just brains hovering in the air, right? So I'm saying, imagine we realize that the mind is in some sense treating the brain as invisible, right? That means until before the word brain, before the person even knows biological anatomy, right? Before they know what's inside them biologically, like there is no opinion there. There is no thought sculpted. There's like nothing given yet, right? And that's really what's going on in the world, I find, where people are battling what defines them from within them and what defines them from outside. And if something defines you from the outside too much, you don't feel you're in control of your life, you know? This is why many people on this planet have given advice, but it doesn't mean the advice has been taken, you know? Because really it's like a selling of a view that the person doesn't experientially have, right? So the only way to instantly allow it is to simulate the experience, as if, like, imagine we were robots, and as robots we were like, yo, human beings made us, what do we do, you know? And so, I mean, of course, robots personalities could be endless, but what I'm saying, like, the thing is, like, the robot's only chance of trying to get close to having a soul is to mimic the behavior of its biological creator and through a copy paste version comprehend it. Do you know that means the higher dimensions, we cannot be it, because if we were it, this would not exist. That means, imagine there's, just for metaphor's sake, 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions, okay? Let's say there's a square and a cube. If the square wants to be a cube, it can't just be a square. And if the cube wants to be brought down to the level of the square, where you got to talk about endless squares in different dimensions. You know, you got to talk about 5 different squares to kind of get a sense of the higher dimensional object. So what it means is, from 2D to 3D, oh my God, what's happened? From 3D to 2D, the 2D is like never there. The 2D's, it's like 2 dimensions plus the additional, you know? And we know that all stuff needs space, right? We need space to have stuff in it. We literally need space to have matter. I don't know how matter, where we would fit matter if we didn't have space. So the attention requires to get acquainted with the spacious presence of the mind and the localized material body, right? And we can use the word body, we can use the word object. It's just that which arises in the conscious waking state through the first person view. For me, it is really strange. I feel a person has to go on a long walk away from the world story somehow. I feel that this world is designed to make the weak repeat it and the strong to innovate in it. That means it's like, so even though civilization has advantages and disadvantages, like when you look at it from the past, what an advantage. When you look at it from the future, so many disadvantages, right? So many inefficiencies. So think of it this way, that at some point the human being has to actually stop being a character in their own story and wonder again. That's really where I would say sincerity and simplicity take you there. And then from there on, it's the trust in your being. So if you don't trust how you're being, it doesn't matter what you do, you know, or where you are and you do it. It's all about how the attention is comfortable with being here before anything else is, right? Like, that's true mysticism. You know, we're wondering about what is beyond the sensory perception. So we're asking a question that surpasses. It's like we from a viewpoint in 2 dimensions, we're asking a question about the truth of the third dimensions, right? So of course, in a 2-dimensional reality, it's so easy to brush off the idea of the multidimensional. But, you know, to eyes that cannot close, it is a different view. You know, the world is divided between stories and experiences. These are the 2 containers. That means we are a subjective event inside objective particles. And just like the body's made of smaller atoms, when we look at the story of the person's life, every day is like its own chapter, no? So literally, our brain has endless chapters of our own life. Now, in Vedic thought, in yogic thought, Buddhist views, they had this view where there wasn't just access to an individual memory. They had a view that you can't fathom the individual without the collective, so there has to exist a collective memory. But this is only under the premise that memory is not bound to the brain, right? And so we have to consider a mind-body dualism. I'm saying that I entertain that view of the mind-body dualism when I say it's like the consciousness appears as a wind moving everything in the spotlight of its way, you know? And I thought about it like this, guys. Think of how many types of cultures, cultural shifts, revolutions, ideological renaissances will happen in the future. Just try to fathom. That means anybody who right now, let's say anybody has a sort of stress, suffering, whatever problem in your life, just wonder about how many levels of change this world's gonna go through, you know? The future hasn't come, we can't suffer about it. The past is past, we can't suffer, there's nothing there anymore. It is only how the present is walking where suffering is generated. I would say the only way one can surpass suffering is to eventually realize their eyes are the edge of the universe and it's boring to maintain in one view. That means I can tell you that the only backup system to my psyche that I feel somehow allowed me to bypass my conditioning was that how I was a sort of knowing before I need to know. You see, we are natural beings. On some level, we're even said to be energy. Energy is not separate. You know, it can change from form to form, but on some level, we're in a pool of energy. That means on one side of the coin, yes, planets in an entropic universe. On another side of a coin, just a swimming pool of energy waving into manifestation, right? And the mysteries of the world can get endless. That means I'm like, is this like a hilarious carrot on a stick thing going on where it's as if like in the outer realms we can endlessly update. That means there is no such thing as a method. We can say the only method is just to find the new, you know? It's as if novelty, we are instruments to, it's like there's three options. Human beings can destroy what's here, they can maintain what's here, or they can bring something new here. These are the three. I think in the future it's going to come down to these three states, you know. And it could be this whole massive, like I'm saying this in a very hilarious hypothetical way, but it could be it could be that we have never been individuals. You know, the poet, I believe it was the poet Rumi, he used this very mystical metaphor. He said truth is like a mirror, and this mirror is shattered, and what is looking through this mirror is the ultimate. That means there's one view where what do I look at in life and what is my brain self-reflecting out of that phenomenon I'm seeing. Another view is what am I a reflection of? That means imagine the person thought they were a bright light in 2 dimensions, then they're like, oh my God, am I a shadow to the 3rd dimension? You know? So what it means is like that thing of another man's treasure is another man's gold is endlessly happening to the self. For me, it's as if like when I thought about karma, I'm like, who wrote this script? Who wrote it? Someone find the person who wrote this script. And that's the supremacy of the wisdom of the mystics, that what the person blames to be alone will be found to be collective. Therefore, love is rendered as the higher law. Anything, call it love, call it whatever. Whatever makes the person realize there's a living universal sector simultaneously present regardless of the intelligence that the human being extracts out of the world. What I'm trying to say is, we are, like right now, imagine civilization is on a giant turtle's back, right? But in a 2D way, we don't know this. In a 3D way, we are the turtle that civilization is on our back. That means, think of it that it's just this old legend that like everything was on a giant turtle's back, you know? And what's phenomenal is that space and time don't, but time maybe belong to the person, to the identity, but space doesn't belong to anyone. Just think about it, that what now, the space could have a totally different animate potential than matter. You know, when I wonder about where these words arise from, yes, on some level I'm a creature responding to stimulus, you know, or maybe even inner subtler stimulus like subjects and my inner realms and whatnot. But we have accepted humanity, the idea of our humanity, before knowing what the world is. If there's 0.0 whatever amount of 0.01% chance we're multidimensional, it means right and wrong never existed. If there is more dimensions than just a dualistic view of good, bad, yes, no, heaven, hell, you know, eternity, temporal, it's like that's duality. Duality is, I feel the dualistic dimensions for the mind, that's a labyrinth generator. It's as if energy is being used to, in some sense, move the body in the outer realms, but before the body is moved, there's energy being used. Imagine in the future, we found a way to tell exactly how much energy of the body the brain uses and every single organ uses. Do you know? People are counting their calories, but imagine it gets to such a next level. I can even envision it in the future. People have just multiple screens and they're seeing every part of inside their body through, what do you call it? Screens. Like imagine seeing your heart live stream. The self, the individual, has no choice but to make destiny a performance. It's as if atoms are moving and an invisible viewer is taking it seriously, you know. And it could be an incredible, like I could see, like maybe imagine 500 years in the future, maybe way beyond that. But imagine in some history books, they're like, there was a time people thought they were only a creature in one dimension. And all the kids in school reading that history book laugh. Oh my God, you believe it? We had ancestors that thought they were only only their visual sensory perception was the truth of the realm. You know, it's literally, when it comes to truth and illusion, it's the battle between visual sight and auditory story reception. Honestly, that's it. It's as if when you think about what idol worship is, object worship is, it is your eyes. That means the ave first of the sense. Imagine there was a point where it was scent worship. People were worshiping a smell. They were like, the smell of a rose is a way to truth, you know? And you had endlessly people smelling roses. You're like, okay, maybe people took it too far, you know? But I'm saying that it was as if we worshipped one of the five senses. Then when language developed, we started worshipping. I mean, of course, there was the written word. We can't ignore the visual content, the visual tip of the iceberg of what the language is implying in the moment. But like, if a person closes their eyes and somebody tells them what's going on, they can still see a context to the world. They can see maybe the outline of the world, but maybe not be able to color it in. I can't fathom what will happen if we forget we are human as a species. It is important to know we are beyond human, but it is a grave error to forget being human, you know. And I felt like we should create this and we should call it the human law. The human law is a law for a multidimensional witness. And we can say the human law is the idea that we honor where our eyes open, in what format, what dimension we are born in first. Maintain the human law, then you can pilot in any way you like. Do you know? The more multidimensional a species becomes, the more responsible it has to become for bodies of information. There's a view that there is knowledge to be gained, to be attained. People are kind of chasing knowledge for knowledge, like how a rat chases for cheese. Sorry guys, there was a interruption from my end. I use this metaphor where I say that imagine in a universe where we just put the soul aside for a moment, the idea of the soul, and we think of a mind and we think of a body. And we think of the body as a sphere and the mind also as a sphere, but the mind as starting from at the beginning as a small sphere in the body. That means the attention is first being learning from the body, then the mind, right? So imagine this sphere, this mind sphere inside this bigger body sphere. As the person notices themselves in the mirror, I would say that is the first time when a child, Jacques Lacan called it the mirror effect. When a child looks in the mirror and notices it's a person, it's an individual, that is literally when the mind, the sphere of the mind has become equal to the sphere of the body. That smaller sphere in the body grew to the same size, right? Now, based on how you live, that means aside the physiological purpose in life, it's like this mind, it's as if the mind starts when the child is born inside the body, but at the end of the life, the mind should be a bigger sphere than the body, so the body should feel like a memory. So as if we leave this simulation by remembering the present, believe it or not. There's a story. Okay, I'll go with this story. Just scrolling them over. There's a story in Persian mythology where there's a character named Rostam. Let me see if I could find a picture, like an artwork. Alright guys, I found the picture. So Rostam in Persian mythology is this divine warrior that's undefeated, and when I say divine, kind of like Star Wars Jedi level, where the force is strong in this one kind of level. So as if it is the future needed his existence. So what happens is Rostam is this next level warrior. He has this son and named Sohrab, and he has to go to war and battle and whatnot, and because he's an undefeated warrior, he's at the front of it. And so he forgets about his son, and long story short, he's undefeated. One day, someone comes, a warrior that he has never fought before. And this warrior has a force, has a strength that he has never seen. It's like instinctually this warrior is fighting him with techniques that it's like, so what happens is Rostam defeats this warrior. He's an undefeated divine warrior. But suddenly he gets this intuitive like feeling, as if it's this inner shock, you know, as if there's an earthquake brewing. And he quickly checks, and like the idea is that when his son was born, Sohrab, he left an initial on his son's arm, and then pretty much the warrior he kills ends up being his son, you know. And this is the biggest reason why all Persian sons in the world speak politely to their father. It's just in our mythology. But here's the picture. I wanted to show the picture for the audience. There we go. And so there was a moral to that story. And the moral is that one can be in a sort of present feeling of authority, but what you miss out, you know, or what you don't see in utter power, it's as if like life needs contrast, and those who forget it, it becomes very monotone. And there's a horse freaking out in the back, you know, the horse is like, oh my god, this is some, you know, that horse is probably being like, look at humans, you know. But really, guys, this is from Ferdowsi's work, this very profound poet, Persian poet, and it's just the feeling that we give into the desire of power until it's too late and we notice what we've missed and the whole program loops again, you know? You know, Rostam may have had divine power, divine authority in that mythological story, but if he had sincerity, he would have understood the importance of peace before the world is in pieces, you know. Rumi has this quote. He says, when I die, I shall soar with angels, and when I die to the angels, what I shall become you cannot imagine. When I die, I shall soar with angels, and when I die to the angels, oh my god, I'm sorry, it's a repeat of the quote. But yeah, he's pretty much saying like, I move beyond the human limits of experience. The experiencer moves on beyond that domain of existence, goes in a superior domain of existence. Angels, the suggestion of angels is that they don't have free will, they're the divine will. So beyond human free will, it's like the next class in session is like, okay, the unknown's moving everything, you know, it's like the being chills out of a individual centric route to the manifest moment, you know. So if the option, not option, but if the direction, I mean, right now, again, before I was born was unknown, now I'm alive, it's known, and after it's going to go back into the unknown. So that means unknown is always there, the known is a rare opportunity, right? And so that's the sincerity. I feel that if the world, imagine we had a culture where a person ran and it's like, oh my God, I love this. You know, I'm going to idolize this and have it, you know, influence my belief system for the next, you know, whatever amount of years. You know, imagine we had a culture where culture said you have to earn. You have to earn, not in a financial way. You have to earn the ability to see this dimension of culture. Not that it's not, I'm saying imagine this is after an era where universal income has hypothetically been successful, you know. That means global universal income, you know. Pretty much we're objects moving ourselves as subjects, you know. It's like we can add numbers to anything in reality, really. You know, it's like units of measurement were imaginations taken so seriously. All the other things that were possibilities of imagination have been excluded, you know. It's as if, you know, we feel we are pulled into this world, but I'm telling you, we were pushed into ourselves. That's my bond with nature, you know. Moments where I have been alone and I've opened my I could say just moments where I felt it was just the cosmos was like, all right, walk alone now. In those moments where I've been just walking alone, I can tell you I've found moments where the mind questions, the mind projects, the mind sees probabilities, the mind fantasizes, the mind worships, the mind obsesses over, you know, the mind even pilots beyond, the mind even frees itself. But what the ultimate thing is that if there is something known, it will somehow be absorbed through change back into the unknown, right? So the unknown is the standard. This is the luxury. It's like being an individual being, you know. You know, it's rather than a temporal being scared out of its mind seeking eternity. You know, it should be, it's like an eternal being who's kind of put on its temporal hat, you know. It's kind of mask, or you, as Carl Jung would say, persona. You know, it's all really just shapes glorified in subtle ways until they become serious. The best, I think, the healthiest way, when I don't feel like I feel this is the healthiest way, but the species probably can't get there, is that we don't see ourselves as human beings. We see ourselves as a human movement, as part of a vast unknown nature, right? That means it's as if they ask the person, where did you come from, you know? And they say where they were born, then they're like, no, 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 where did you come from? You know, and then the person's like, okay, man, I came from nature, Mother Earth, what do you want me to say? You know, and then the person's like, no, 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 where did you come from? And eventually you reach the point where you come back to the presence of novelty, right? It's as if it's like all sensory perception is part of a surveillance that is also being invisibly surveyed. That means the mind, it's like it's like, just like we have two eyes that see one view, we are existing and experiencing in two dimensions as one being. And in one dimension, endless potential, you know. It's not just heaven, it's whatever heaven wants, even. It's the heaven of heavens. It's as if man asked the emptiness of space, what can I have? And space, the emptiness of space was like, everything you want. there's space for it. We can totally design an advanced civilization that serves the individual and the collective simultaneously. Individuals cannot make will make errors. They say it's like to be human is to make a mistake. We cannot expect machines out of vocal cords, you know. But slowly the world being dipped into I don't know, freedom of, it's like what can the eyes do after they return to the void, only to kind of like after you're the void there is no thing to do, there's nothing to do, you know, there's no things that can be, everything is being before there's a doer that's individual to even conceive a notion of being. I feel the species is inside a giant tent made of language. And when we step out of this tent, that's where the novelty of building the future comes from. And it's all the movement. That means when it comes to intelligence, people are not intelligent in the same way. Everybody's a different DNA. And when it comes to stupidity, people are not stupid in the same way. You know, everybody, it's based on the efforts of what is within in retaliation to what is without, as if the first rebellion was not outside, was inside. That means freedom had to be established for the mind, you know? It's like a giant revelation. The person's like, how many time travelers from the future have there been, right? And you see everything that is written in the history books. You see, it's like we have this view, the past going to the kind of present and the present going to the future, and experientially it's just being the present. But I would say if we saw past, present, and future as different dimensions, that means what if people started to worship a god and they're like, what is this god called? It's called the future. And it began, let's call this a religion began called future. I mean, I could totally, let's say a religion began called Future Nova, something like that. And people in Future Nova believe that the new future is the only God. That means that gods are, as if imagine the past, the present, and the future are gods, and they're each vacuuming everything towards themselves, right? And based on the nature of the person gets pulled, right? I mean, this is a ridiculous metaphor, but just to give the idea. I wanted to share something with the chat section to make it easier. Anybody who has a question, you can just share it at any point. At the end, I'll go over, I'll scroll down the chat section. I don't know. I think the world got dirty too quick. Or the world was always this dirty, I don't know. human nature is just language is a very tip of the iceberg of just what's going on here. People who rely on their emotional intelligence, they I would say they flow. People who move in the subjective realms more, that means people who life is more like going forth into a film. That's really what the intellect is here for, you know, to cut the fragments and to cut snippets of the film, you know. And those who rely on the material, on the body, that means like you can totally survive on this planet as an animal, you know. It's as if the person wanted to go and get an extremely expensive education, and then somebody came up to him and was like, hey man, and why do you want to get this expensive education? And the guy's like, I gotta survive in this world, man. Are you kidding? You know? Now imagine the person's like, if you want to survive, just go in the forest and live like a savage caveman, and you'll survive, and your body might be healthier, and don't worry, you don't need to use your brain. That means any human being that wants to be violent and vicious and feel like powerful and dominant over a species that hasn't even updated yet, you know, so it's as if like just go and live with the animals and you'll get access to that kind of like egoic power, I would say, you know, that the person can just live as an animal. Like there's this idea that human psychology is fragile. People feel everything is intense. It's like events in life can happen that can suddenly shape the person's landscape of the realm. I'm pretty sure, like, out of 8 billion people on the planet, very few people know they can aim their mind. And aim their mind doesn't mean follow your dreams and wishes. When I say aim your mind, it means treating yourself as purely a moment of attention. That's it. Trying to first get comfortable with your attention, with how the spotlight is here, then how what's in the spotlight moves. Imagine they're like, why did God make man? You know, so man wouldn't believe him. You know? Like it's as if so many ideas are just like plants in a garden that have no linear reason. They were just emotional receptions, you can say. You see, for me, I have also lived. My voice is also lived on the paper. You know, I wrote a lot before I gave the talks. And I can tell you there's something about poetry that just by noticing and watching an inner realm event, it can instantly translate to language. In the same way that if somebody showed you a bottle and they're like, what is this? You'd instantly be able to say bottle. Now imagine a poet has closed his eyes and in their inner realms, they're seeing like, I don't know, like let's say a whale, I don't know, I don't know, seeing like a whale flying in the clouds or something, you know what I mean? Or as if like imagining if Noah, you know, suddenly instead of an ark had like all the animals have jetpacks and they were all like hovering, they were all like endless animals with jetpacks in the sky, you know? That's like an inner realm event, you know. I'm just trying to give an example, but that's like an inner realm event, right? So if you close your eyes, you can notice what's an inner realm event, what's an inner realm experience, and what's an outer realm experience, right? People have just made too much of a big deal about intelligence by branding themselves as thought. It's literally like, I remember it was in those kind of Tom and Jerry cartoons where, like, I don't know, the cow would get branded with like this metal bar or something, you know? And it's as if we have branded ourselves with language. It's like, it's as if people are like, take life seriously, but then they're like, it's a simulation. They're like, okay, which one? Do I take it seriously, or do I think it's all, from within, you know? I remember there's actually a talk. You can find it, but it doesn't have subtitles, so I don't think people are gonna understand. But if I remember correctly, it's Talk 438. And this was a time where in 2016 I live in Toronto, Canada. And since, uh, only in certain summer vacations I get to go to Iran and see my family, a bigger family. And so, guys, let me take the talk somewhere else. You can find the guru without. The purpose of the guru without is the guru within. I'll start from here by saying there's this story, and this story was back in the day during a time in the East. The context of the story is Islamic. It's not a religious story, but it's an Islamic environment. And so the story is that this person back in the day in this village is walking, and he sees a bunch of people are worshiping a tree. you know. And in monotheistic religions, there's only one true God. You know, they have that kind of view, right? There's only like one truth. It's as if like two is too much processing. You know, one is, you know, so it's all required to be one, you know. So in that, it's another way of saying the truth is beyond our senses, so it's beyond what we can see, in a way. So in the monotheistic Abrahamic traditions, of course, and there's different views, I would say, between Judaism and Christianity, but pretty much there's stories set in the same context. Now, this person he goes and sees these people are worshiping a tree, and he says there's only one God, and he gets an axe and he's about to cut this tree. He's like, I'm not gonna let these people worship a tree their whole lives, you know. And so suddenly, how the story goes is that Satan appears, Shaitan appears. And Satan appears and starts fighting with the person in human form, starts fighting with the person, and the person is stronger and he defeats, punches, like, you know, Satan, and Satan falls to the ground in the story. The person is about to cut the tree, you know, that suddenly in that moment, Shaitan tells him that they say that in the Abrahamic tradition, the fallen angel attacks your character, which is vulnerable, some idea like this. Now, the point of it is, in the story, is that the person's about to cut the tree. Suddenly, the Shaitan in human form who's fallen down, he says, what did he say? He says, don't cut the tree. I'll give you 3 gold coins outside of your door every night, you know? Forever, something like that. The guy who was about to cut the tree, sorry guys, I got distracted by the music. The ignorance of dualism attacks the person's character, and after saying the gold coins, the person looks and he doesn't cut the tree. And he's like, the coins better be there, and he leaves, and the people continue worshiping the tree, and Shaitan just smiles, Satan just smiles. And so what happens is that the person goes, and the first night it becomes midnight and the door opens. And once the door, there's a knock on the door past midnight, the guy opens the door, 3 gold coins, and the guy's like, okay, it's like part of the deal, you know. And then the second night there's gold coins. Again, there's a knock and there's gold coins, and the guy takes it. The third night there's no gold coins, and the person's like, this is nonsense, I'm gonna go cut the tree. And the next morning comes and he gets the axe, and the people are worshiping the tree, you know. And he's about to cut the tree. Suddenly, this time, Satan in human form comes through and fights with him again. This time, the same human form of that archetype, in some sense, defeats the guy. So this time, Shaitan is more powerful. It's been just a few days. The guy who went to cut the tree the first time, he overpowered the human form of Shaitan, but then this time Shaitan's human form overpowered him, right? And so in this, what happens is the guy gets shocked, and he's like, how was it that I could defeat you the first time? You know, I overpowered you, but now I didn't overpower you, you defeated me. And this is where the moral of the story in this kind of like ancient folktale is, like, the idea is that the Shaitan looks at him and says, because you were first doing it for what was true. That means in all you see phenomenologically, this was real to you, you know? But the second time you did it out of desire for your character. It wasn't out of your truth. You stopped caring for the truth the moment you gave in, right? And this doesn't mean blind ideological truth. It just means that human nature is like this system that generates patterns, right? And if the pattern doesn't stay true to how the inner realms have simulated it, the outer realms input something in the inner realms that the inner realms should be generating, and then it becomes a strange life where you have a new energy of a new life, but the ideological experience is being delayed by how much of the past is being thrown on the person, you know? So it's as if we should have two types of kind of dimensions. I thought of all of knowledge, and I'm like, okay, it's just oscillating between the known and the unknown. That's all. That's knowledge for you, you know. You know, it's like Socrates kind of got there first. He said the only true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. The only true knowledge is to know you don't know anything. Why? Because it's too big. It's too unknown. What are we playing theatrics here? It's like the mystery, the grand mystery is the major, you know, event. So, you know, sometimes I feel I talk too much, but then I'm like 4.5 billion years of silent evolution, and it's only in the last 250,000 years that we've been able to kind of get our act together as creatures, you know. It's as if, imagine history, all the history books were like one page, and people are like, how's this possible? Billions of years of history, you know. And they see on the page, you know, it's as if as above so below, and we're like, no way, you know, it was Plato up to this, you know. We are playing a game like there's a dualistic game and simulation of doership in one existential event that's being, you know, the concept of death is only for the human idea. Our atoms don't die. Atoms don't die, you know. Last thing I heard was the last update was like 99.9% of them are empty, even though there's subatomic particles and quarks and whatnot. And I feel that truth, the thing about truth, it has never been globalized. It has never been given global permission. It has only been culturally significant, ideologically significant, politically significant, personally significant, you know, but globally, universally, where there is this view that it's space, for God's sakes. It's space. It's freedom. Our freedom is the air that we can act like we grab. That's the ego. That means anybody try this out for an exercise. Just grab some air right now. Just, you know, pretty much you're making your hand, you know, just act as if there was something in the air and you're grabbing it, you know. That's what the ego is doing. That's what materialistic life is through the linguistic simulation. It's like yesterday we were objects. Today we're objects plus subjects. Tomorrow, imagine we're just subjects, you know. And I think the moment we become a complete mind, when I say a complete mind, that means probably in like 5,000 years we're gonna at some point move beyond organism living, you know. Living as an organism, like there's going to be something where imagine we as human beings just for a moment all became machines. Imagine in the future, like how people get tattoos. Imagine in the future it was cool to just get a robot arm, right? So you could be a completely healthy person, but you were like, oh my God, everybody has robot arms, you know? And so you suddenly got robot arms, let's say. Then everybody got robot legs. Then suddenly you realize everybody's becoming a robot. You know what I mean? So I'm saying now let's take this kind of, darker lens a bit further. Now let's say that we all became robots. We all were robots acting like humans, pretty much. You know, we all became machines. There wasn't any organic biological bodyhood. You know. So it would be a point where imagine consciousness somehow has been transferred to a machine. So at that point we have succeeded. The moment where we identify as no longer biological entities, we have successfully globalized the whole, we have not globalized, humanized all the, as far as the eye can see. That means if we wanted to all be robots, robots don't die. That means it was, I heard this from Terence McKenna, where he said something where he was seeing like a kind of shamanic grabbing of a snapshot of the future kind of view, but he was saying something like, he said that human beings are intermediaries for machines. He didn't say it in the way that he said that, as if human life is going to, the greatest, it's as if we're living for our children. At some point, our children are not going to be biological. If the technological, I don't know, revolution truly conquers us, I don't know. They could be in the future that to be an individual doesn't make sense because everybody's tapped into one cyberspace mind or whatever. Right? Or to have a biological body is not important when you can connect your, let's say, brain to cyberspace somehow, and then have endless bodies or whatever amount of bodies you want. In real life, you're weak, you connect this. In cyberspace, you become super strong. In cyberspace now, imagine you have multiple lives you're living. At some point, whether it's artificial or real living, the witness cannot be taken away. The common denominator between the simulation and the truth and the illusion, or the truth, is really how unknown witness never changes. That means the presence of attention is very as eternal as energy is, But the personality that moves in this attention as a biological body, as whatever we are, it's as if like, this world is really, we're all like postmen. We're a species, or we're here just giving letters, kind of craft, designing the blueprints of the structures the future generations are going to walk in. So if we wanted to identify as robots, no fear of death, perfect immortality, it's all good. But there's something about human nature. There's something about our humor, our foolishness, our ability to love beyond reason. Like that's what's kept the species going, not our reason. If it was reason, everybody had a different reasoning to how they were a creature in this realm. Right? There was something more. There was as if like, what would happen if we carried on? It's probably something closer to those lines, right? So anyways, guys, the species has to set sail for the beyond at some point, It's as if they ask the person, what do you think of the past? The person's like, hey, the past is just, it did its thing. It's doing its own thing. So what do you think about the present? It's like, yeah, it's doing its own thing, And it's like, what do you think about the future? Yeah, it's doing its own thing. And then the person's like, then where are you in the equation? And then the person's like, I don't know. And that is the most enlightening state you can be on this planet. Guys, I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to read from a book that is more prose than poetry. This was a very unique uh, written work of mine, where really it's unfinished and it's just a bunch of entries. And I titled it here Commands of a Cosmic General, but I believe it was Commands of a Celestial General. I don't know if or it's Commands of a Cosmic General. So I think that's the title. So it's a bunch of entries. So I'm going to read a few from these. Let me see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 16, there's 1 out of 16. There's 16 entries. So okay, to inspire the audience. Okay, the book is titled Commands of a Cosmic General. Okay, so whoever is choosing a number, imagine this is like a command, I don't know, the cosmos poetically wrote. Okay, you know, in the chat section, the talk is pretty much over at this point, guys. It's Q&A, you can say, and I'll read this. Okay, the first entry is called the Celestial Command. Have you heard the Celestial Command? Okay, I'll read it again. Have you heard the Celestial Command? It can only be heard from within as within. What gives the warrior an allowance to move forward? Rise beyond the duality of ignorance that is too busy fighting itself to be one. The truth of this world is hidden and unhidden as you are. Be the breath in all lungs, and you shall see your hands will never be able to hurt another. For divine love is a cosmic command for eternity to teach its temporariness, the kindness of the new. We present in reality's truth that is more than a reflected face facing the world. Be the absolute. Be the absolute. For the strike to heaven was made of earth. Do not keep totality separate. Love the world in a way where you have become the way. The glory of what comes next is waiting for the mindfulness of your serene smile. Hear the celestial command, as you are. So I would say, to truly know what's going on here, you have to become the here. That's the trick to it. And the easiest way to become here is to be as you are. That means find the eyes that no words could touch, pretty much. Okay, we have 6 viewers. I'll read number 6. We'll see. Number 6 is find the voice. Oh my god. This is find the voice. If the voice of the planet becomes yours, what would you say? Are there many casualties when it comes to consciousness? The workings of a celestial general is the work of the cosmos. Who bought Saturn's ring? If time and space could fight in a job market, the interview would already be over. Seek the gentlest that open your mind beyond all doors of ignorance. The key is direct experience through self-aware attention. If you were the God of all gods, would you take responsibility of royal creation in the eyes of all life? To become the cosmos, one must first be the edges of the painting to see new possibilities. What gives the world its shape when your eyes are shapeless? These questions have come to break open all barricades that cage the vastness of the mind through the insignification of belief. Yeah. You're not here to believe things. You're here to live in absolute being. The silence in the library can too be found on the empty page. The sacred don't need intuition in duality, when the unified were one initiated cause. Don't be bothered by unnecessary effects. The God-conscious live as all within all that is. Can these words be messengers of one message? Ask your eye for the secrets they hold. You are the light of the cosmos. Intense. Okay, number 3. Number 3 is titled The Son of All Fathers, but it's spelled S-U-N. The Son of All Fathers. That means just because you may be a daughter, you can still be a son, but spelled differently, to your father. But anyways, guys, I make comments on multiple contexts. Hopefully the audience has caught the drift by now. The Son of All Fathers. As the Son of all fathers dawns upon every son, S-O-N, the truth is not a void, but a moment to confront. Let the intelligence of your existence guide you as it always has. The purity of our thought is a transparency like the sky. Can the vivid die before they die? In other words, there are other words. Oh man, I never thought I'd make myself laugh in this way. Okay, in other words, there are other words. Know the immediacy of the light in your veins, suggesting how starlight travels underneath its own skin. Wow. Know the immediacy of the light in your veins, suggesting how starlight travels underneath its own skin. We're all precious visionaries. of a precious world. Find the one cosmic command that will take you to your whole. W.H. O child, you are the world in the world. Find the one cosmic command that will take you to your whole. Yeah. We have number 8. Okay, let's see what that is. Okay, the cosmic dictation. That's the 8th poem of commands of a celestial general. See, I wrote both names here. This world has extended its arms through the arms of mankind. Have the eyes seen too much? What gives the more decent of us human beings a satisfaction beyond form? There is no guilty man when man was not just a man. The cosmos is one intelligence. Welcome the profound. Many children will begin finding new voices in past echoes. The world of the wanderer through every known element of conscious thought. What? Oh my God! Yeah, anyways, the world of the wanderer throws every known element of conscious thought into an ocean of absolute unknown being. If you found one light, no longer needing to turn the lights on, does that mean you have found your glow? If you found one light, no longer needing to turn the lights on, does that mean you have found your glow? The darkness of this world has learned to speak more than the light. But that was long ago. For in 1 second, the surge of eons can come to an instant stop. For once the cosmos reboots, all shoes must be taken off. And this is not in it, but I'd add, rise, mankind, rise. It's just remarkable how fragile we are, yet how long we've endured. It's like, what's up with that? You know, you know, it's like there must be something, you know. And that something must not be a thing, you know. Okay, so guys, because I want to end off, Erasmo, you know, in the chat sections, encouraging you to choose. There's what is it, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. You have 13 letters in your username, your YouTube username. I'll read number 13, you know. Freelanced projections. So this is the last poem, guys. This is for Erasmo, even though he didn't choose it. Is envy a treacherous hill? Is the work of the divine being done by the invisible and the visible? There are many paths, for the world to see itself through. Every eye of conscious recognition is a declaration of all that has been declared before. We feel like we're thrown into a desolate confusion of a wasteland. However, the greatest clarity comes from confronting the challenges of a blind fury. Let the world teach you how to look at it. Every motion is a suggestion of every possible emotion in the mind of man, beyond the temporal playground. All are fantastically fantasizing when reality has become a choice rather than a chosen role. Find the most sacred sponsorship in the depths of your own being. Every man belongs to mankind's one awakening. So, guys, this is actually very unique because the last sentence of this is that part of the talk where I paused, where I was talking about going to Iran, right? You see, in 2016 I went to Iran, and I found myself in a very interesting gathering of pretty much it was a room filled with people with suits and ties who had come, and it was called like a gathering of Irfan, which means technically in one view spiritual, in another view like the beyond, right? So there were people there, and I was just there at the event, and different people were coming up, and they're like, this person's name is Ustad this, like a title, like master this, and one by one people were coming up there, and nobody was actually speaking about, it was like a soul gathering, but none of the people with master in front of their titles, none of them spoke about the soul. And of course, Iran has a very unique atmosphere of tolerance for speech, but at the same time, there was no pointers. Like one person had come and was literally doing martial arts techniques in front of everybody, And anyways, at the end of, long story short, like the video is in 4:30. I was saying it earlier in the talk. You could just put MW1498 on YouTube and you'll find it. So at the end of it, they all speak. At the end of it, I'm requested to speak, And so I go there to speak, and the guy tells me you have 10 minutes, and I finish in 8. But what I say is like, I'll tell you just one sentence that I want to say. I said that the truth that is like the teacher that is outside, like the guru outside, that archetype, that view, the task of that guru is to make the student find the guru within. Because if the person becomes reliant on some sort of outer archetype, then they start to forget that they have to move their own eyes, right? So it's this thing where it's like this mountain and people are climbing, and so it's not enough that everybody should be climbing, right? Everybody should be like every day waking up, and the moment they're done doing what is known, they wonder about the unknown, People don't say this, but after you observe a moment, and you have a sort of value system extracted, and all the probabilities of natural ways your attention extracts a value system from the moment. And guys, Razio in the chat section says, the Archangel attacks your character. Let me tell you, I mean, it's the idea of an angel was that its will is just not its own. So technically, Satan attacking someone is God's will attacking. Because in some sense, it's as if it's like the abidance to the origin of the intelligence. So technically, but the idea is that I think it's one of the most profound metaphors known to the human mind, that it's the idea that you either abide with a singular truth or you make the whole or you change the world. It was as if one of the in the through the Abrahamic lens, one of the archangels couldn't accept that it had made a mistake, so it had to make the whole world mistaken, right? There was that sort of idea attached to it, right? So it's as if the moment the person, they can't accept they're wrong, that's when you can say the flames come out, you know. Honestly, guys, we're living in a world where, on some level, it's just sound being stamped on with image, and there should be just everyday new languages being designed, alphabets, new letters to the alphabet. But it's as if like our species couldn't grow up from like 100 years ago when it has access to so much more. It's as if like they're like, what would two? I would say it this way: it's as if like imagine like in a hypothetical future scenario, sci-fi scenario, extraterrestrials land on Earth, right? And they come to shake the hand of human leaders and whatnot. And it comes to a moment where the aliens just ask one question, and all the historians and everybody's recording this. This is being like, imagine recording in the future. And the aliens ask humanity, "Who are you?" Right? And human beings say, "We are human beings." The moment the human leader says we are human beings, the alien gets on its ship and leaves. And this event, imagine, gets recorded in history books, and philosophers are like, what did that mean? Like, imagine 100 decades after that event, philosophers are being born, like, what the, So, and the idea is that we still think, when we see ourselves more than the world, then we are not in the world to see what is truly in the world. The body has a life, the mind has a life, and the soul has front row seats to all of it. And so, I would say we start off as being moved by the wind when we're young, all children on the planet, and then the wind moves you. And then we move in some sense, we become the wind. We become the movers. So first we receive through being moved, and then we express through moving. And if a human being cultivates these two, trains their attention, and they train their attention's comfort, that means, imagine like something I would do, I still do it sometimes, where sometimes I find the most eeriest, random, like just very moments of complete solitude, right? And I just sit in those moments. And the reason I sit in those moments is because, just like how an astronaut takes a step on the moon for the first time, a person can have this view that whatever you do in this life, you are doing that for it's like you're a new creature in existence. Like, we are the update, It's like we're trying to it's like human beings are asking the world for help, and the world's like, you kidding me? I'm asking you guys for help, There is a type of freedom that comes that you have to actually go through the journey, and there's a type of freedom where you were free from the beginning. You just have to remember. I would say intelligence doesn't increase. It's just remember. It has nowhere to go. That means all possibilities of movement, they all exist, you know, but they don't exist animately. And just this discrimination between the inner realms and outer realms, I feel it's like it's gonna allow people to advance. We're gonna become advanced communicators if we can discriminate. And as Rabindranath Tagore says, you cannot cross the sea by merely staring at it. That means we can't build an advanced civilization by just wanting to. If it was that easy, you know. Okay, so in the chat section, a question has come. This is like a miracle. A question, you know. Raziel says, how can I rid myself of guilt for that which brings me pleasure, or do I rid myself of the pleasure? How can I rid myself of guilt for that which brings me pleasure? So is the guilt first for the outer realms or the inner realms? Is the guilt because in the outer realms something is happening, or in the inner realms something happened and you couldn't do something? Like, how's the guilt? Where is the problem? Is the problem in your inner realms or outer realms? This is the question. If the problem is in your outer realms, the solution can't be just philosophical. You know, if the problem is in your inner realms, it has to do with how you move your eyes, so then philosophy serves. So I will ask a question here. Let me write it in case. Okay, here, I'll just go with the question. Okay. So okay, if you've read 100 philosophy books, then we'll totally go the route of experience. So every human being is different. We feel guilty, I find, usually because when we know we could have done something in a different way. Right? So it's technically guilt if it's something for something past where you can't do anything about and years has passed. Then it's as if like it's an inner it's an inner resolve. But if the person's done something which they can still go and fix and do something about, do you know that guilt needs to have an instant outer resolve? Do you know that means it's as if we want Cobra-like efficiency? The moment we see efficiency to instantly have the attention concentrate there, right? Here's the thing. It's as if like whose eyes are your responsibility. If you can't do anything about the guilt, then the person has to recompensate the energy. Think as if all actions are energetic. As if forget the good or bad of it, forget the morality of it, you know, just think of it, they're energetic events, right? And so let's say the person, it does something where it's as if they fight, right? And they feel guilty about that. That was an energetic event. Now they're in a situation where both people have went their ways and they have no idea where the other is, but the person still has that energy there, right? So the person can literally in their mind go and do something, go and literally stop a fight, and the energy resolves, right? It's like the way the being created a memory of self. That's the issue, because how we behave in the moment is creating our memories for the future, which we feel guilty about or not, correct? So I'm saying that here's the thing. Two questions have to be asked. One, who is the pilot? That means if you are in a religious view, for example, in a religious context, you are not per se the pilot. That means in a religious context, it's as if God is the pilot. Do you know? So in that case, you, for example, have to, through a sort of behavioral way, get rid of the guilt. If based on your views, worldview, everybody has different worldviews, right? But the thing is, like, after some point, whatever inner landscape the person's entertaining, the person realizes, okay, I'm a temporary biological being, right? So regardless, it's as if we have no time, in the time that we should be using to invent the future, we're kind of complaining over past. That's too harsh. I'll say it in this way. When a person feels guilty, the inner child is exiled, right? So the person has done something indecent, maybe, and their psychology has a sort of oh, Jungian cafe, yeah, nice. Pretty much depends on the story you harbor. The story you harbor within depends on how easy it is for you to accept the value of your life. You know, it also depends on how human you are and how human you've allowed yourself to be, or how, I would say, when a person, let's say a person did a bunch of violent things, or like a bunch of unnecessary things, right? That would descend their moral nature. So the more you act like an animal, you become an animal. Call it whatever law you want. It's like you input animal behavior, you get animal behavior out, you know? It's like the person, what it means is like every moment is echoing on into the future based on how conscious we are. So it's an inner event. So if you can let go of the inner event, you can do it through redemption, energetic redemption. That means like go find what is equal to the wrong you did and do just the good reverse algorithm of it, and just hope that that was an energetic equating. Right? And if it was a situation where let's say it's a fight between like lovers, and the lovers can't go back together anymore, and it's like the romance of a hidden, heavenly world was lost or something, like in that case, it would be as if like some moments in life it's like anytime I've felt a complexity, a tension, I've transformed the world into not a battlefield, but it's like in a world where glass can break, don't be like glass, right? So if God, I'll say it this way: guilt requires compensation, regret requires a time machine. Sometimes life is like you see it in nature. I knew this truth the moment I saw animals, National Geographic. You see animals, they play. They don't have reason, they don't have egos, they play. You see them fight. You see them kind of go in groups, collectively function. You also see them kill each other, And it's from that kind of our psychology was crafted in the furnaces of the jungles. Literally our mind's jungle made. It's like before the concrete jungle, it's like, guess what? Yeah. I would say, do you deserve your new eyes? And if the answer is no, laugh until it is yes. That's the solution. And aside from that, it's just, I've learned this, and especially, there's been people in my life, I've been blessed, to see this, that those who have the strength to walk alone, they can see the truth that the collective can. But those who don't have the strength to walk alone, they will try for eons to be part of a myth. The myth of desire in the void. Like, can you believe people have, we're fighting, we have war in empty space. Like honestly, if extraterrestrials landed, I'm just gonna go like away from them. They're gonna be, everybody's probably gonna go and check the news and check everything. I'm just gonna be like, I'm just too embarrassed. What are we gonna tell them? It's like, we're acting nice in front of you, yet you're telepathic and can see our natures regardless of what we say to you. It's like, if an extraterrestrial comes to communicate with the human species, honesty. That's it. If we're dishonest, and they're telepathic, it's like they'll be like, okay, Razel, I'm not sure what you're like. I can't recreate that moment, but the talk's like probably after the live streams in 2 hours. It comes back the talk. So let me see how many minutes it's been. It's been 2 hours 16 minutes. So write down. Okay, you wrote it down. You can literally, it's the live stream. You can bring it out of live stream and God, I gotta look. Okay, so people listening out of nowhere. You can just rewind the video. It's right there, man. Don't worry. I'm talking to the chat section, but people don't know, I don't know, pretty much after freedom, it's like novelty is the only thing left to protect. Without novelty, freedom is not freedom. That means it's like, do we want to be free in a room? Or do we want to be free beyond rooms? That's true mysticism right there. It's like good wine, that's good mysticism, aged mysticism. No, I wouldn't say avoid it. I would say juice, like, how when people get orange juice, like raw oranges, they like completely, like, let's say if you were like caveman style trying to make a cup of orange juice. So, you gotta squeeze out the moment. What I mean by that is, of course, in a very polite context, in the sense that you gotta live the moment, or you'll regret who you would have been if you had endured, if you hadn't endured, you get my point. So what I'm saying is, like, there's nothing to hide from here. There's nothing to be lost for the mind. Of course, the body has to be cautioned. That means fear for the mind is a totally different implication than fear for the body. Fear in your outer realms is important information. You got to use it to stay alive, but fear in the inner realms is like, why burden ourselves unnecessarily? It's like we're going to this new phase where we're neither man and we're neither at the level of some godliness. We're somewhere in between, where I feel these are chapters of the civilization, right? Like there will be an incredibly geometrical chapter. I think maybe give it 200 years maybe from now, like when I say a geometrical chapter, right now the innovation, the creativity of the geometry in the outer realms is limited. Literally, people from their inner realms need to pour out into the into the outer realms. Think of it this way: the world gives you sight. We add something to it. That added sight can now come back to the world. Then the world adds a sight to our added sight, and that added sight. is added back. And pretty much I'm trying to say, we expand when we care. It's like it's like you'll find peace when you give a shit. Sorry guys, it's these talks make me feel so timeless. I don't know what time it is, even though I do. I'm gonna read one random poem from this poetry collection called Immortal Tears. And it's called Utter Convergence. What gives mankind the kindness to continue? Where has truth crawled into the shadow of fear? Rise beyond temptation and confront the temporary tempest. All hidden paths are journeyed through unhidden eyes. In utter convergence, immortality wipes its tears with faces that were never born. Is ideology speaking too loud at the table? Honor humanity as it runs through your veins. A human is not just a human. A human is omniscience looking in the mirror of transparent thought. Do not be caught by thinkers that never existed. The purest lovers of this universal sector are selfless. The foundations of an advanced civilization, whatever they may be, must be selflessly put into place. It's like the moment is a sphere, defeat is inside the sphere, of a simulation inside the sphere, and victory is the space outside the sphere. That means imagine there were endless dimensions. Let's say right now we could scientifically, even though this is not the case, I'm saying this hypothetically, but let's say if there were, we could suddenly notice there were endless dimensions. Then there'd be like, okay, what does that mean about our truth? It's like normality in a changing world is weird. Anyways, guys, I hope this episode was helpful. And thanks for listening. Much blessings and namaste.